And that is the secret to making sure that your evil hedgehog army doesn't turn against you and kill you.
That makes sense. I've always been more of an evil skink army myself.
Skinks do band together better than hedgehogs, but they aren't their own ballista weapon. Look. Starts with an A. Means a thing you put in a weapon and fling.
Artillery?
No. Ammunition.
Oh, that word.
Stupid brain. It was a really funny thing if it hadn't had a massive pause in the middle. Oh well. Edit it out.
I'll get right on that. I'm leaning down to see where I need to put this corner pin. There we go. All right. It says that on 14 count, which is what I'm working on, that this would be like 13 by 15, but I only have a piece that's 11.5 by 13. And also I'm supposed to use I'm supposed to have like 5 inches of border, which seems like a lot. So we're going with 2 inches of border and we'll see where we get.
Okay.
Probably nowhere, but you know, I'm not. These are scrap materials that I had around, so I'm not wasting anything.
If there's 4 inches, no, how much? 5 inches of border?
Well,
all the way around, or 2.5 per side?
It said 5 inches all the way around, which seems like a lot.
Right. So if the pattern is originally 13 by 15, you're supposed to use a 23 by 25 inch piece.
Unless the 5 inches is calculated into the 13 by 15. In which case...
You're fine.
In which case I'm fine. Yeah. We'll find out. I'm going to start with the border, so we'll see how big it is. I was modifying it anyway, so we'll see.
Right. Cross-stitching anarchist.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm down here and doing something that doesn't require my hands, I end up working on the Pizonki owl. So I'll show you how he's looking.
Oh, he looks great.
Let's see.
And the black is from the wax, right? You have black wax now.
Yes, I finally have black wax. It's not focusing. Stupid camera. Oh well. Yeah, I am delighted to be using black wax because back when we used the yellow stuff, it would turn clear, and then you have to guess where you've been. It's really amazing that we made it as far as we did.
It is.
And Brown learned something, started following some Pizonkiists on TikTok and shit. Apparently, that you and I and our family never did. You can rinse the egg in between dye dips.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Right? So I'm getting all the warm colors on, and then once all the wax is applied, I can rinse it off and do some like nice blues and purples. And I'm like, well, I feel foolish for not having thought of that. As long as you use cool water so that the wax doesn't start to run.
Yeah, which makes sense too. Okay.
You read last time, and we definitely made it farther than the beginning of the chapter.
We did. So I think we had just gotten to where they were resting at the end of the first stair, and then they were about to go up the second one.
Right.
Made a mess of things.
Final flight, short and straight. Frodo saw the very crown of the bitter road. Have we seen the tower, or were we?
Yes. No. So we have already gone past that. They saw like the army marching out of the tower. They went up the stairs.
No. The Tower of Cirith
Oh, I don't know. I don't think we've seen the Tower of Cirith yet.
Okay.
I think they had paused, and then they were like, "We, one stair to go, and then what we shall see." And Gollum was being super sus, and then that's approximately where we stopped.
Check. Seems a long way off and a long way up before we get there, and there's still the tunnel. I think you ought to rest now. We've been going for hours and hours. Yes, we must rest, etc.
I think so. Let me grab my book. I'm just not sure. One sec.
Right, because there's a lot of fucking stairs. Actually, I think this is where we are. There's another stair, a longer stair. Rest when we get to the top of that one.
Yeah, so it's Frodo shivered, the climb had made him sweat, but now he felt cold and clammy.
There we are. There was a chill draft in the dark passage blowing down from the invisible heights above.
Yes, well, let's go on, he said. This is no place to sit in, and that's where we are.
Excellent. The passage seemed to go on for miles, and always the chill air flowed over them, rising as they went on to a bitter wind. The mountains seemed to be trying with their deadly breath to daunt them, to turn them back from the secrets of the high places, or to blow them away into the darkness behind. They only knew that they had come to the end, when suddenly they felt no wall at their right hand. They could see very little. Great black, shapeless masses and deep gray shadows loomed above them and about them, but now and again a dull red light flickered up under the lowering clouds, and for a moment they were aware of tall peaks in front and on either side, like pillars holding up a vast sagging roof. They seemed to have climbed up many hundreds of feet onto a wide shelf. A cliff was on their left, and a chasm on their right. Gollum led the way close under the cliff. For the present they were no longer climbing, but the ground was now more broken and dangerous in the dark, and there were blocks and lumps of fallen stone in the way. Their going was slow and cautious. How many hours had passed since they had entered the Morgul Vale, neither Sam nor Frodo could any longer guess. The night seemed endless. At length they were once more aware of a wall looming up, and once more a stairway opened before them. Again they halted, and again they began to climb.
One moment.
Killer calves. Pizza time? They're having pizza. I am not having pizza. I have decided I don't actually like gluten-free pizza. It's more like a cracker with toppings, and when you're in the mood for soft, squishy pizza, you don't want cracker with toppings. I do have a friend who's a gluten-free baker, but I haven't made it over to her shop yet, but I totally will because I bet her pizza kicks all kinds of ass. Her pretzels are to die for. I want pizza.
What was that?
I was just talking.
Oh, okay.
Nothing, I said you're pretty. Yum, 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 yum. And the... Qua? And they're going to have killer calves.
They are. They are definitely going to be very capable of doing Pilates after this.
Right. Some serious triplets of Belleville coconut calves after this shit.
Oh, man, I haven't thought about that in a million years.
Oh. It was a long and weary ascent, but this stairway did not delve into the mountainside. Here the huge cliff face sloped backwards, and the path, like a snake, wound to and fro across it. At one point it crawled sideways right to the edge of the dark chasm, and Frodo, glancing down, saw below him, as a vast, deep pit, the great ravine at the head of the Morgul Vale. Down in its depths glimmered like a glowworm thread the wraith road from the dead city to the nameless pass. He turned hastily away. Man, I wonder if there's a nameless pass somewhere in Colorado. I feel like there ought to be.
I imagine there are many.
Yeah, but one called the Nameless Pass with capital N.
Oh, probably.
Right?
That feels like a thing we would do.
It does. I'm almost sure there's a town called either Nameless or Nowhere somewhere in the mountains.
There's a town called No Name. Is that the one you're thinking of?
No Name. I'm thinking of No Name. Because they're ornery.
Probably.
Still on and up the stairway bent and crawled until at last, with a final flight, short and straight, it climbed out again onto another level. The path had veered away from the main pass in the great ravine, and it now followed its own perilous course at the bottom of a lesser cleft, among the higher regions of the Efelduath. Dimly the
call it a lesser cleft.
Up where the Efelduath pierces the clouds, where Barad-dûr is plain to see. There's a great big flaming apple watching me.
Yes.
Dimly the hobbits could discern tall piers and jagged pinnacles of stone on either side, between which were great crevices and fissures blacker than the night, where forgotten winters had gnawed and carved the sunless stone. And now the red light in the sky seemed stronger, though they could not tell whether a dreadful morning were indeed coming to this place of shadow, or whether they saw only the flame of some great violence of Sauron in the torment of Gorgoroth beyond. Turning sideways.
Okay.
Still far ahead. Oh, wow, that's really echoey. I'll turn this way. Echo? God damn it. Still far ahead, and still high above, Frodo, looking up, saw, as he guessed, the very crown of this bitter road. Can you still hear me all right?
I can, yeah. How's your echo?
It's better when I'm facing away from the mic.
Word.
So if I'm in profile here, it's better.
Like a Roman coin.
Indeed. Very like a Roman coin. Look at that.
And meanwhile, I'm slowly creeping the camera closer and closer because I realize this is like a tiny little bit of stitching that's really hard to see. I have done all of 5 whole stitches. There's about 5,000 in this piece.
Yep. Got a great way left to go. Still far ahead and still high above, Frodo, looking up, saw, as he guessed, the very crown of this bitter road. Against the sullen redness of the eastern sky, a cleft was outlined in the topmost ridge, narrow, deep cloven between 2 black shoulders, and on either shoulder was a horn of stone. He paused and looked more attentively. The horn upon the left was tall and slender, and in it burned a red light, or else the red light in the land beyond was shining through a hole. He saw now it was a black tower poised above the outer pass. He touched Sam's arm and pointed. "I don't like the look of that," said Sam. "So this secret way of yours is guarded after all," he growled, turning to Gollum. "As you knew all along, I suppose." "Always are watched, yes," said Gollum. "Of course they are. But hobbits must try some way. This may be least watched. Perhaps they've all gone away to big battle, perhaps." "Perhaps," grunted Sam. "Well, it still seems a long way off and a long way up before we get there. And there's still the tunnel. I think you ought to rest now, Mr. Frodo. I don't know what time of day or night it is, but we've kept going for hours and hours. Yes, we must rest, said Frodo. Let us find some corner out of the wind and gather our strength for the last lap. For so he felt it to be. The terrors of the land beyond and the deed to be done there seemed remote, too far off yet to trouble him. All his mind was bent on getting through or over this impenetrable wall and guard. If once he could do that impossible thing, then somehow the errand would be accomplished, or so it seemed to him in that dark hour of weariness, still laboring in the stony shadows under Cirith Ungol. Ah, been there, man. That's a mood.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I just have to do the thing in front of me, and the rest of it will totally, it'll work out. It'll work out.
It'll work out. And yeah, maybe I have to do that later, but I'm not going to think about that now.
Which is really probably a good way to approach it in most of these cases.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, just do the thing in front of me. Just do it. In a dark crevice between two great piers of rock, they sat down. Frodo and Sam a little way within, and Gollum crouched upon the ground near the opening. There the hobbits took what they expected would be their last meal before they went down into the nameless land, maybe the last meal they would ever eat together. Some of the food of Gondor they ate, and wafers of the waybread of the elves, and they drank a little. But of their water they were sparing, and took only enough to moisten their dry mouths. I just thought of something.
Yes.
The pass is frequently used by the, well, not frequently. It's occasionally used by the orcs going back and forth between Minas Morgul and the tower in the pass, right?
Yeah.
It's not as well used as the road that just is a straight shot, but this roundabout way, it gets used. We know that orcs do graffiti. There may well be graffiti all over these stones.
I mean, I would expect that there would be at least some. Although, do the orcs do graffiti because they have an urge to create something? Or do they only graffiti things they hate as a way of destroying it?
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. Could be.
They don't strike me as having a lot of artistic impulses necessarily.
Yeah, the defacing of the sculpture of the king at the crossroads took a fair amount of ingenuity because they had to hack off his head and then put a new one in its place that was all maimed and foul. But yeah, it's not like we see that done to much in the way of the natural. Things that are already ugly don't seem to get the same treatment.
Right. Yeah, it's a destructive impulse rather than a creative one.
Yep. If any of these walls said Shagrat was here or something, we would have to delve a little deeper into what makes them, or how different we are from
right. That's the other thing. Yeah, if they have any impulses other than hate and destruction, then we actually have to consider them as sentient creatures, which is not something that Tolkien was prepared to do.
Right. Well, they're sentient, but they're not complex.
Right. Well, and by sentient, I mean like you'd have to actually deal with the ramifications of them being sentient, which he doesn't.
No.
He doesn't ever. There's no moral dilemma over killing an orc that anybody ever has.
No, especially other orcs.
No, but well, I was thinking our heroes, but yeah, other orcs too.
Yeah. Which is kind of the point. He's like, anyone this far gone in this ideology of destruction and hate has already used up all their mercy.
Possibly. I don't know. I think the idea of evil races and good races in the sense of like species is a very interesting one morally to think about, because it doesn't get a lot of development in terms of like, how can that be exactly?
Exactly. And it isn't.
Yeah, no, in real life it isn't.
Well, it isn't within the context of the story, it feels to me as if it's understood that none of the races represent actual races. It's not a one-to-one with the primary reality. The races
No.
represent modes of thought, modes of action. And we've discussed this before, like everyone's got within them a hobbit, an elf, a Numenorian, and an orc, and probably a wizard.
I don't know if that was me you discussed that with, but I like the idea.
Right? And to be to give in to impulses that are petty and hate-filled and awful will turn you into an orc, and you don't have to look like one to count. But to try and rise to your highest ideals is to be, yeah, your inner elf. Actually, so the races are a little more complex in the Silmarillion because there's elves in there that are awful.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time we get to the Third Age, every elf yet living is wise and kind and good and strong, and it's like, I like that optimism that he shows because the Silmarillion elves are as varied and diverse in their appetites and actions as any human you've ever met, which means that he thinks that if we were given immortality, eventually the shameful parts of us would die out, or the shameful people would kill themselves off somehow with their own whatevers, with their own selfishness or their own anger.
Yeah. Although at the point where you've had immortality and you've sort of perfected yourself, then what more is there to do?
Well, then you can look after things and be a steward and help out any hobbits that happen to be passing through. Invent electricity. I always wonder why none of them did. I bet Feanor would have if he'd lived.
Oh, he totally would have.
He would have.
Yeah.
He may have, actually. That might be what the freaking Palantiri depend upon. They're actually like Tesla.
They're just phones. They're just cell phones.
But powered by ley lines or something completely where wires are uncalled for.
Yes. He was the Hedy Lamarr of Numenor.
Right. And it's worth noting that the petty elves didn't get better usually. They didn't improve and become better people. They just died.
Well, yeah, that's a little less realistic, I would say.
Got themselves killed one way or another.
I think that's the sort of the central tragedy of the elves is that they actually don't change. And right? I know that you and I disagree on how tragic that is.
Well, yeah, that conversation we've definitely had where I'm like, I don't picture Lothlorien as being a stagnant place, but there's enough hints within the text that you could certainly interpret it that way. I'm just more of an optimist.
Well, I don't necessarily think it has anything to do with optimism so much as it has to do with how you feel about how necessary change is.
It depends on the change. I don't like things falling apart. That's how necessary entropy is. You don't need it.
Well, but things fall apart and other things take their place. And if the first thing didn't fall apart, the second thing couldn't exist.
Okay. But what if things didn't fall apart and they could just be built on and improved without having to be destroyed? I don't know. That's very... The universe doesn't work that way. Creation does require destruction. I think it's the fact that I own a house that something's constantly wrong with, and so the notion of being able to preserve all things unstained, where the appliances don't break. There's never any rot in the ceiling, and there's never any gaskets to replace on anything. See, that appeals.
You really just want your fridge to be working.
Yeah. And I didn't even tell you about last week. Sebastian took a bath, and it turned out, so no one ever takes a bath as deep as Sebastian. So we didn't know that the gasket holding the overflow against the wall of the tub, like between the tub and the pipe, there's a gasket. It had corroded entirely. Sebastian filled the tub up to the top, and so the ceiling is now destroyed in the hallway directly underneath.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Just another day in the life. And of course, it was a great big bubble of paint. So we drained it and tore the ceiling up and found a lot of mold, because even though nobody had caused a flood, still moisture was getting in there.
Yeah, which is not good for...
Yeah.
It's great for the mold. It's just not good for the humans.
And we've got kills, and Jason bought like a $4 gasket and replaced the damn thing, and everything's going to be fine. But Galadriel would keep that kind of shit from ever happening, and I envy it. They have to have plumbing, even if they don't have what we think of as electricity. There's no fucking way the Galadrim have to go to a well with a pair of buckets.
I mean, I was going to suggest that perhaps elves just don't poop, but...
No, they eat. They gotta poop. Maybe they poop once a decade or something.
Hey, Glorfindel, you want to come out and sing in the forest with us? Oh, no, sorry. It's my once a decade. I'm going to be spending the whole day pooping.
Their bodies are more efficient at using the nutrients in their food, so they only have enough substance for a poop once a decade.
Well, I'm glad we solved that question that no one wanted answered.
And somewhere on the edge of Lothlorien, there's like a beautiful shining pavilion where you go when your time is upon you, and have a seat and bring a magazine.
Poems are written about it.
But there didn't seem to be any caste system, so it's not they wouldn't have servants bringing the water up to the bathing rooms or whatever. There must have been plumbing.
Possibly, although I don't necessarily agree that they don't have a caste system, because they have, like, lords.
They do, but it seemed like everyone was a lord.
Well, if everyone's a lord, then no one's a lord, and Galadriel and Celeborn definitely are lords, so there has to be some sort of caste system.
I guess so. I'd hate to think of the maids of Lothlorien. Actually, no, I really want to. Maybe they all take turns. Maybe it's not a solid caste system. Every year they swap out. Whoever wasn't carrying the buckets last year, or doing the cooking, or making the beds, will do it this year.
Could be. Maybe they have trained squirrels.
They totally have trained squirrels. There's precedent for that. Bjorn's got all his animals that can walk on 2 legs and carry trays of food.
There we go. We solved it. Who needs plumbing when you have squirrels?
Someone write the fanfic about the trained squirrels of Lothlorien.
It won't be me. I'm a bit Amy-wamey about squirrels.
Dead as that squirrel. Which squirrel? Oh, that squirrel.
Hate them.
Yeah.
Be twitchy noses. Anyway.
Wait. In a dark crevice between 2 great piers of rock, they sat down. Frodo and Sam a little way within, and Gollum crouched upon the ground near the opening. There the hobbits took what they expected would be their last meal, etc., moistened their dry mouths. Sorry, lost track of myself there.
That's okay, so did I.
How many squirrels would it take to carry a bucket of water? I think I like the idea of servants, but not permanent servants. This week I carry the water, next week you do it, or whatever. That's my new headcanon for, fantasy infrastructure.
Fair enough.
I wonder when we'll find water again, said Sam. But I suppose even over there they drink. Orcs drink, don't they? Yes, they drink, said Frodo. Whiskey. No, but let us not speak of that. Such drink is not for us. Then all the more need to fill our bottles, said Sam. But there isn't any water up here. Not a sound or a trickle have I heard. And anyway, Faramir said we were not to drink any water in Morgul. No water flowing out of Imlad Morgul were his words, said Frodo. We are not in that valley now, and if we came on a spring, it would be flowing into it, not out of it. Oh, I wouldn't trust it, said Sam. Not till I was dying of thirst. There's a wicked feeling about this place. He sniffed. And a smell, I fancy. Do you notice it? A queer kind of a smell. Stuffy. I don't like it. I don't like anything here at all, said Frodo. Step or stone, breath or bone. Earth, air, and water all seem accursed. But so our path is laid. Yes, that's so, said Sam. And we shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo. Adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think that they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for, because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull, kind of sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folks seem to have been just landed in them, usually. Their paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back, only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least not to what folk inside a story and not outside call a good end. Coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into. I wonder, said Frodo, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take any one that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know. And you don't want them to. No, sir, of course not. Beren now, he never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown in Thangorodrim, and yet he did. That was a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. But that's a long tale, of course, and goes on past the happiness and into grief and beyond it. And the Silmaril went on and came to Earendil. And, why, sir, I never thought of that before. You've got some of the light of it in that star glass that the lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's going on. Don't the great tales never end? No, they never end as tales, said Frodo. But the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later, or sooner, and then we can have some rest. And some sleep, said Sam. He laughed grimly. And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. I mean plain, ordinary rest and sleep, and waking up to a morning's work in the garden. I'm afraid that's all I'm hoping for all the time. All the big important plans are not for my sort. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean put into words, you know? Told by the fireside or read out of a great big book with red and black letters years and years afterwards. And people will say, let's hear about Frodo and the ring. And they'll say, yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he, Dad? Yes, my boy, the famousest of the hobbits. And that's saying a lot. It's saying a lot too much, said Frodo, and he laughed, a long, clear laugh from his heart. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth. To Sam, suddenly it seemed as if all the stones were listening and the tall rocks leaning over them. But Frodo did not heed them. He laughed again. Why, Sam, he said, to hear you somehow makes me as merry as if the story was already written. But you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Stout-Hearted. I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put in more of his talk, Dad? That's what I like. It makes me laugh. And Frodo wouldn't have got far without Sam, would he, Dad? Oh, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, you shouldn't make fun. I was serious. So was I, said Frodo. And so I am. We're going on a bit too fast. You and I, Sam, are still stuck in the worst places of the story, and it is all too likely that some will say at this point, shut the book now, Dad. We don't want to read any more. Maybe, said Sam, but I wouldn't be one to say that. Things done and over made into part of the great tales are different. Why, even Gollum might be good in a tale. Better than he is to have by you, anyway. And he used to like tales himself once, by his own account. I wonder if he thinks he's the hero or the villain. Gollum, he called. Would you like to be the hero? Now where's he got to again? There was no sign of him at the mouth of their shelter, nor in the shadows near. He had refused their food, though he had, as usual, accepted a mouthful of water, and then he had seemed to curl up for a sleep. They had supposed that one, at any rate, of his objects in his long absence the day before had been to hunt for food to his own liking, and now he had evidently slipped off again while they talked. But what for this time? I don't like him sneaking off without saying, said Sam. And least of all now. He can't be looking for food up here, not unless there's some kind of rock he fancies. Why, there isn't even a bit of moss. It's no good worrying about him now, said Frodo. We couldn't have got so far, not even within sight of the pass, without him, and so we'll have to put up with his ways. If he's false, he's false. Which is another way in which I like Frodo in the book better than in the movies. I mean, the Frodo in the movies adds more drama, and yeah, it's probably more interesting, and it was probably the right choice for a film, but coming back to the books where Frodo's like, yeah, he's going to stab us in the back. Whatever, dude. We're on an impossible mission. It's fucking impossible. We're going to die. I'm not going to stress about it.
I mean,
right? Such a badass. All the same, I'd rather have him under my eye. How's the cross stitch going?
well, it's going all right. I've got about 40 stitches.
Hmm?
But I've only got this much left of the material, so I'm looking at the chart to see if that's going to be enough.
Okay. Check, check, check. All the same, I'd rather have him under my eye, said Sam. All the more so if he's false. Do you remember he never would say if this pass was guarded or no? And now we see a tower there, and it may be deserted, and it may not. Do you think he's gone to fetch them? Orcs or whatever they are? No. I don't think so, answered Frodo. even if he's up to some wickedness, and I suppose that's not unlikely. I don't think it's that. Not to fetch orcs or any servants of the enemy. Why wait till now and go through all the labour of the climb and come so near the land he fears? He could probably have betrayed us. Damn it, why does it keep changing like that? Woot? Woot? Ah.
Are you testing echo?
Yeah.
Well, I can't see you now, but I hear you.
Okay.
Fabric's not big enough.
Even with only a 2-inch? Well, how short is it?
So I would need minimum 140 stitches, and I have about 100 stitches worth of room. And that's if I had no edge at all.
Oh, shot.
So, long story short, I don't think that 5 inches of edge was included in the original measurements.
Nope.
Alas.
What are you going to do? Just something else? Work on Cheeky Dick Waffle instead.
I can't find it. Yeah, I'm going to have to redo it.
Fuck.
Yeah, I know. It's been like 10 years.
Right? Jason remembers.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad he remembers, because if he didn't remember, then I wouldn't bother to redo it.
He doesn't want to nag you about it, but every so often he's like, damn it.
Well, I'm glad. Him still wanting it is a motivating factor, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
I wonder if I saved the
pattern.
Yeah, I wonder if I had a chart for it.
I hope so.
I mean, I'm sure I could reconstruct it, but okay, good to know.
He could probably have betrayed us to orcs many times since we met him. No, if it's anything, it will be some little private trick of his own that he thinks is quite secret. Well, I suppose you're right, Mr. Frodo, said Sam. Not that it comforts me mightily. I don't make no mistake. I don't doubt he'd hand me over to orcs as gladly as kiss my hand. But I was forgetting his precious. No, I suppose the whole time it's been the precious for poor Smeagol. That's the one idea in all his little schemes, if he has any. But how bringing us up here will help him in that is more than I can guess. Very likely he can't guess himself, said Frodo. And I don't think he's got just one plain scheme in his muddled head. I think he really is in part trying to save the precious from the enemy as long as he can. For that would be the last disaster for him too, if the enemy got it. And in the other part, perhaps he's just biding his time and waiting on chance. Yeah, slinker and slinker, as I've said before, said Sam. But the nearer they get to the enemy's land, the more like Stinker Slinker will get. Mark my words, if ever we get to the pass, he won't let us really take the precious thing over the border without making some kind of trouble. Ah! I lost you! Where are you? Come back. Come back, my precious. Did you leave to get pizza? No, wait, that should have been ages ago. Where'd you go?
I don't know. All of a sudden it was like, there's a problem. And I was like, no, put me back.
It's a parallel dimension.
I hope not. Ain't got time for that.
No. Oh. We haven't got there yet, said Frodo. No, but we'd better keep our eyes skinned till we do. If we're caught napping, Stinker will come out on top pretty quick. Not but what it would be safe for you to have a wink now, master. Safe if you lay close to me. I'd be dearly glad to see you have a sleep. I'll keep watch over you. And anyway, if you lay near with my arm round you, no one could come pawing you without your Sam knowing it. Sleep, said Frodo. A little bit. Although, I mean, it works both ways, is the beauty of it. You can ship them and it works. But also, I've had best friends that would do this with completely platonically. So whichever way makes a person happy, they can read it that way.
Indeed.
Sleep, said Frodo, and sighed as if out of a desert he had seen a mirage of cool green. Yes, even here I could sleep. Sleep then, master. Lay your head in my lap. Oh, I was hoping to get to the tunnel because there's a line in the tunnel that is like of personal import to me, but I guess I'll just interrupt when you read it.
I was going to say, just tell me when it's coming up.
I can do that. And it's not that I'll have to read it, it's just that I want to discuss it, and I will interrupt like we do.
Good.
Not like I do. You don't interrupt me that much.
I feel like I do, but maybe I interrupt myself more.
Oh, goodness. Thank you for being willing to podcast, even though we saw each other yesterday.
You are welcome. It was fun.
And at some point, I need to come up and see your place.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Yeah. And... oh, yeah, that was the other thing. Look, I got them hung up.
Yay!
Yes. Whoa.
Whoa.
I still haven't done any Reddit searches for herpetologists and stuff, but Corin pledged $5 to my Patreon, so that was really, really, really nice.
That's lovely.
Hey, invisible audience, go to my Patreon. I need moral support.
Support her morally.
Or immorally. Or financially.
Any of the above. Speaking of moral support, I went to my mailbox today and I was like, there's a package in here from China. I didn't order anything from China. And it's this here. Shale. It's this set of dice that I had seen online.
Oh my god, they're beautiful. They're dragons.
Beautiful.
And they're hollow?
Yeah. They're metal and they're hollow. Let me pull one out here. So here's the D20 and you can see it's like, you can see right through it.
It's a cage. Oh, that is epic.
They're so cool. And they're rainbow and they're dragons and I love them. And I had seen them online. I didn't buy these. Someone bought these for me.
Well, thank you, strange person.
Yes, I think it's one of my coworkers, but I was just like, that's the nicest thing.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Moral support.
Moral support. Okay, I'm gonna go eat my pizza.
Enjoy your pizza. I love you.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Vamos.